delivered from Hamamatsu Researcher Zukan. Hello, let's start the Researcher Zukan. I'm Nipio. In this program, I introduce you researchers in various fields from all over the universe every day. Today's researcher is Professor M.G. Sheftall.
From Shizuoka University. Hello, everyone.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay. Professor Sheftall's key phrase are these three. Okay, first key phrase.
Yes.
War and memory. Could you explain this key phrase?
Okay. War and memory. War and memory is one part of a larger research picture for me, which for the last 12 years has been communication studies, specifically the dynamic system of social structures, including politics, belief systems, culturally based belief systems, and language. So the relationship between those three. Yes, I've been doing that in one shape or another for the last 12 years since I became a university educator. And I began my War and Memory project 6 years ago, which was immediately after the 9/11 attacks in New York, and the timing is not a coincidence, because that was the inspiration for me to begin this research. So more on that.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So specifically, War and Memory, what I'm doing, and how I started on that was that when I was watching the TV that day on 9/11, I turned on the TV just a few seconds after the second airplane hit, because actually I had heard the person in the apartment next door shouting in a big voice, watch the TV, and I turned on my own TV and I saw that. And in my memory of that, just a few minutes after the second airplane hit, maybe even a few seconds later, the newscaster, the American newscasters, used the word kamikaze.
Oh, kamikaze.
And I heard that, and I thought something's not right about that.
No.
Okay, I see the crash the airplane and something to it, but okay, I see the mechanical similarities. But something just struck me as wrong. I felt instinctively something wrong. As you say in Japanese, harare kanji, right? I felt in my gut that was wrong. But then in the next second I thought, well, if someone put me on the spot and asked me, well, why is it wrong? Tell me why it's wrong. Intellectually, I could not explain at that point. So I felt there a lack of knowledge. And for a scholar, when presented with a lack of knowledge situation, our instinct is to, well, do away with that lack, get the knowledge. So that led me to this project on War and Memory. And specifically about the kamikaze. And it all really started with a Google search.
Google.
Yes, I typed in kamikaze one day after 9/11. And I hit the search button, and some sites came up, obviously many hits. But one of the first hits was the website of a kamikaze veterans memorial group in Tokyo. And the people who are watching this might think, well, kamikaze veteran seems a sort of an oxymoron or a contradiction in terms, because usually when you think of kamikaze, someone who carries that out, they don't live to talk about it. And in this case, veterans, kamikaze veterans means men who trained for these missions, were members of the special units, Army or Navy units that were dedicated to this mission. And I think most importantly, from the spiritual or psychological aspect, is that they had publicly promised to carry out these missions. In many cases, quite literally, publicly, because they were being filmed by newsreel cameras or interviewed and being photographed by newspaper reporters. They had written letters to their families saying goodbye. So they psychologically and morally committed themselves to do this act, but they were prevented from, or saved, if you want, or saved from carrying out this act by the end of the war, when all their friends had died before them. So these men were left with this huge emotional and psychological burden of surviving under those circumstances. And the great majority of them were unable to get social support on that problem, on that suffering from their families or their co-workers at their jobs. So as I found out, what they had done to create a social support system was to make one themselves. Instead of relying on the people closest to their lives, their wives or their children or whatever, they didn't go to them with the problem. They couldn't. Maybe in Japanese culture it sort of prevents you from troubling the most closest people in your life with your problem, so you take the problem somewhere else. And in their case, they had made these special and very closed sort of societies, community of people who had had the same war experience or had lost a family member in kamikaze. And they supported each other all of those long years after the war and are still doing it today. So I was very lucky to be accepted into that community after I had promised them to write a book about their stories fairly. I promised that I would be fair and impartial, and I didn't have some political agenda to carry out. So they trusted me with their stories, and the result was this book. Yes. Blossoms in the Wind, Human Legacies of the Kamikaze. This is published in 2005. Yes. Not a bestseller, but I like to think that I made some sort of contribution to Japan studies, to war and memory studies, and to sociology or communication studies in general.
What is the goal of your research?
The goal of this research, well, as I just said now, was to on the professional level, is to make a contribution to studies of modern Japanese history, of sociology, anthropology, studying how groups create memories, and how they support each other through the rhetoric of the memory creation. And in a more general sort of humanistic level, I'm hoping that my research can show other people that it's possible to rebound, even in one lifetime, to rebound from an awful situation to a recovery as a healthy and happy human being, which I think these people were able to do. I don't think their message, their specific message that they use to make themselves healthy is necessarily good for everybody, but in their case they were able to support each other and recover from this huge disillusionment and the destruction of their belief system that they had held until August 15th, 1945. So hopefully that can add some, make a contribution to universal understanding of how people recover from belief system damage.
I think it's very important research.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move to the second key phrase. How did I get from there to here?
Did you get it? Okay. Yes. How did I get from there to here? Very long story. I guess if you look at the main components of this subject material that I'm handling, it's on one hand it's Japanese cultural studies, and then the other it's military history in a way. Although I don't really like to call it military history. Some people might call it that, even though I don't really think that's what it is. But certainly the generative origins of this, my research, my passion for this, are probably come from my childhood interest in Japanese culture and military history. So I think it was just a matter of time after I came to Japan 20 years ago that someday those two interests would overlap and meet. And actually before 9/11 I was starting to head in that direction, but 9/11 happened and greatly accelerated that process and resulted in what I've been doing for the last 6 years. So.
That's how did I get from
Yes, very short version.
Okay. Why did you like Japanese or Japanese culture?
Well, I've talked a lot about this with my parents, and it seems pretty certain that the definitive psychological influence was a babysitter that I had when I was 3, from ages of 3 to 4. Yeah, my parents, there was a nursing college. I spent my early childhood in Boston while I grew up in New York. My early childhood was in Boston, and there was a nursing college right on the same street as my family's apartment. My parents were looking for a babysitter. You don't use babysitters in Japan very much, right? After the couple gets married and they have the children become the center of the family, sort of, right? Mom and dad don't go out on dates so much, right? But in America, it's a little bit different, and so we have the institution of the babysitter. And my parents were looking for a reliable, good babysitter. At the time, the Boston Strangler was making its rounds in my neighborhood, so they wanted someone very reliable. And they talked to someone, I don't know, at the park, at the playground or whatever, and they heard that there were nice, reliable girls at the nursing college down the street. So my mother went there, I guess to their, I don't know, their job, their employment office or something, and said, I'm looking for a babysitter who could open on Friday or Saturday nights. So they recommended a Japanese woman who had come from Japan, obviously. I almost want to say she might have been some kind of a Fulbright scholar or some sort of special program, because this is about what, 1965, 66. It wasn't so easy for regular average Japanese to do a kind of ryugaku or a foreign study like that. So she must have been a pretty accomplished young woman to do this. So anyway, they recommended this girl, and she became my babysitter. And just about every week, 1 or 2 times, we would spend several hours together. And she told me all of Japan, and showed me pictures, and made things with me. And plus, her personality was something to me was quite been my first love. So if you put the age 3, 4 years old, the woman and all, you can put it all together. You don't have to be Sigmund Freud to see that some very huge developmental occurrence happened like that for me. So I knew at that age that someday my destiny lay in Japan. And the military history side of me is I guess more from my family's heritage. A lot of military service, and it's kind of looked at as a given that if you're a male and born into my family, at some point you're going to do a few years of military service. And my father was quite adamant that he wanted me to do that, and I did. So. As I said before, it was just a matter of time before the Japanese and the military history met, and that happened, and it's what I'm doing now. So, quite fulfilling on many levels for me to do this research.
It's very important.
Yes. I think you have to if you're not passionate about what you're doing, you can't do good research because it takes over your entire life. And I don't see how a person would be able to devote their life to something that they weren't passionate about, unless it's very well paying and university teaching.
Very interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move to the third key phrase.
Okay. Yes.
Living with memories.
Right.
Could you explain this key phrase?
Okay. I guess this phrase will lead us into me explaining why I think my research is important.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think beyond the personal interest level of me being able to spend years researching Japan and military, I think the contribution that my research makes and can make is to look into the structure of how memories of a terrible experience are changed into something not so terrible, and often, in this case, I think, changed into something positive. Now, as I said before, I don't know how good that is a message to be spread to everyone, and I certainly don't want to contribute to making a positive story out of the kamikaze. I think it was a tragedy. But what I'm more interested in is not making a happy story about a happy ending story about the kamikaze, but in making a happy ending story about people who are traumatized by something and who, through supporting each other, are able to make something positive out of that. And I think that a lot of the problems that are facing humanity right now, especially we who are living in the industrialized countries with 500 years of logic and reason shaping our thought patterns, we like to think that these problems we're facing are all due to political and economic factors. In a strange way, that's reassuring for us. It's all about the oil, or it's the economic oppression and all that. As I just said, in a weird way, that's reassuring to us because it means there's a logical explanation. And if there's a logical explanation, that means that there can be a logical solution. That makes a Westerner or someone from an industrialized country feel relief. Oh, okay. Oh, that's what it is. Okay, we can do something about it then. But after my years of studying the situation that made the kamikaze possible, and in my subsequent research, which has been into how people deal with lingering bad feelings, I think that the problems facing the world today, which is the biggest problem, the most dangerous, which is obviously the resurgence of fundamental Islam against what we could call the Renaissance influenced age of reasoning, age of enlightenment, descended industrial world. That confrontation, and going back to what I just said, I think for us to look at that confrontation as just being a matter of economics and of political oppression is it's delusional. I think there's something more deeper and more visceral, and in short, what I'm saying is that emotions have played maybe a bigger factor in this than we want to acknowledge, because emotions are messy, they're sloppy, they're hard to nail down, and they're hard to change. But I think we have to face the truth that there are emotional factors in this confrontation right now, and they might be more powerful than the economic and political factors.
Oh.
And if that's true, we may have to approach this problem differently than the way we've been approaching it now, which is either to try to pay off the problem or to smash it with military power. Neither of those approaches work, as we can see in the mess in Iraq. So something else has to be done. If I knew what that was, I wouldn't be sitting here. Hopefully I'd be president of the world right now, but obviously not. So I just wanted to sound the call that we have to maybe look into some alternative ways of approaching this confrontation, because failure to do so will have calamitous consequences for our species. And hopefully in some tiny, minute, infinitesimal way, my research can maybe give some smarter person jog their memory or give them some sort of spark of inspiration. And if that can happen someday, it all would have been worth it.
You have a great dream.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, it's time to go now.
Okay, it's great talking to you.
Nice
to meet you.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, okay, see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.